This is a story that happened a few years back at a university in Southern California. It's a story about how there was a professor of philosophy that was deeply committed atheist. For the final requirement of his class, the professor dared his students to prove that God exists. Because of the man's logic, no student would ever argue against the professor. What the professor would do was at the end of every semester on the last day, he would say to his class of 300 students,
"Good morning, class. So, do any of you still believe that God exists?"
In 20 years, not one student had stood up because they knew what he was going to do next.
That's what I thought. Because believing in God makes you a fool. If God existed, he'd be able to stop this piece of chalk from hitting the ground and breaking. Such a simple task for a great God, yet in 20 years I've never seen him do it.
As the chalk fell and shattered on the ground, the professor reveled in the silence, for he knew he had won. Certainly a number of Christians had slipped through the class before, but in 20 years no one had ever stood up. A couple of years later, a freshman had enrolled into the class. She was a Christian and she had heard the stories about the professor.
Afternoon, class. If any of you still believe in God, stand up.
As he asked his famous question, the students sat in silence. Then suddenly, he noticed her, standing in the back. He was in shock. No one had ever challenged him.
Obviously you're a fool, because if God really existed, he'd be able to stop this piece of chalk from hitting the ground and breaking. If God is so big and powerful, that should be a simple task. But in my 22 years of experience, I've never seen him at...
The freshman was still standing. She proceeded to walk to the front of the room, and for the next hour, she shared her faith in Jesus.
Hi, my name is Allie.
When someone challenges your faith, you have two options: sit in silence or stand. Stand up for what you believe in.